If you want to be able to pick up any blitz, including the increasingly popular creeper and sim pressures without keeping extra bodies in the pass protection, then this video is for you. Let's dive into the differences between JET and SCAT pass protection. Whether you are an offensive line coach or an offensive coach in general, being able to marry a pass protection to the pass concepts can take an offense to the next level. While they both work off of those half slide mechanics, they take it a step further, and that's what makes them able to pick up those creeper and sim pressures and the twists that sometimes come along with them. Stick around to the end of the video and we're going to break down some full passing concepts with the pass protections against some of these creeper and sim pressures, and I'll tell you which ones I prefer at the high school level. Alright, just so we can make sure we're on the same page, let's talk about half slide mechanics in general. So half slide, we're going to have what most would call a zone side and a man side. I kind of think of with the half slide, you just have the gap. You just have a certain gap and then it splits. And with a 6-man protection, the running back is going to insert where it splits, or in a 5-man protection, that's going to be one of the hots. Now for me, the Pass Pro is tied into our mic ID, and again, that's kind of where some of the creeper and sim pressure pickups can come from. So if you want more on that, be sure to click the note card up above and you can see more about that mic ID. But we're going to ID the backside linebacker here. So he, in a 4-down front, is the linebacker that the offensive line is going to be responsible for. We're going to be responsible for the 4-down and the ID'd mic. So we are sliding to the right here. The left tackle has a defender in his play side gap, so he is going to take it. The left guard does not, so he's going to make his call to the rest of the offensive line. Say we're going to have a 4-man slide to the right. The left guard would be taking the nose. The center's going to squeeze the nose with eyes on the mic. Then the right guard and right tackle would have the defensive end. And let's just say the running back is out into a route. So the will here would be somebody that we would ID as a hot defender. So in general, that's half slide. That's going to be opposed to a full slide. A full slide here would have the running back picking up the defensive end and the rest of the offensive line sliding the other way. So theoretically, the left tackle would have the end, the left guard and the center would be working to the will, then the right guard and the right tackle would be working the 3 to the mic. Now, obviously the big issue here, and a reason that half slide isn't very popular, is because we're getting a halfback, a skill player on a defensive end, a defensive lineman, a lot of times probably going to be an outside linebacker in an odd front, but still somebody who's bigger traditionally than a halfback is going to be. So not exactly something that we want to do, also because it forces the halfback to stay in. And one thing that I really want in the pass protection is to be able to get the running back out. Unless the defense is sending 6 players, we need to be able, even if it's just the running back coming out of the backfield, he gets open so much, it's really hard for a traditional 4-man rush and 7-man coverage to be able to stop 5 eligible receivers with just how wide a football field is. All right, now that we have an understanding of slide mechanics, let's take a look at JET protection. JET is 6-man pass protection. Again, this is going to work off of half slide mechanics, and with JET protection, for me, generally the running back is going to start on the play side, meaning that's the side of the quarterback's initial read. And the reason is we want the quarterback to be able to see any hot defenders early in the down so he can make his hot throw. We always want to make sure that his backside is protected. So we would have ID'd the will here because he's the backside linebacker from where we're sliding, meaning that we have the offensive line dedicated to blocking these 3 players. Maybe there's a strong safety or a nickel type out here. So something that a defense theoretically could do is maybe they're going to drop the mic out into the coverage, bring this star off the edge and stunt the 3 and the 5 inside. There's still gap sound, very easy to do. The running back would be checking the protection 1 to 2 inside to outside to see who he would need to block. The only way the quarterback here has to make his hot throw is if both the mic and that star come, because now they have 7 rushers per 6 defenders. So a huge benefit of JET protection is being able to make sure that the quarterback is protected from C gap to C gap. All right, now let's take a look at how JET would fit up against an odd front And there's actually two ways this can be done. The first obviously being we can 5-0 the front here and we can go big on big. That is pretty much the standard way to do it. Then the running back's dual read would just be up the middle. He would be looking 1 to 2. And this is great, especially if we're facing a team that likes double edge pressure, but there is another way to do it. The other way to do it would actually be to full slide the line. We're facing a tight front here, so this defensive end is kind of in a 4-eye. If we have a tackle that can scoop him out, then we can go 5-on-5 against the defense here, and then the running back's dual read can work from the Sam to the Mike. So the right tackle here would make a call to let the running back know that he's not blocking the Sam on the ball here. So with the Sam being more of a rushing threat, then the running back would be looking to him first, but he can look to pick up the Sam off the edge and then the Mike in the gap if that's what he needs to do. All right, so that's all pretty standard half slide stuff. Where jet protection really shines is in its ability to pick up those extra rushers on the outside of the box. So let's again say that we're going to slide the line left. We've got a passing concept going to the right here. We would ID the jack here as our Mike. And if you've taken a look at my Mike ID system, you would know that the Mike here is the +1, the star would be the -1. And what we would do is if the -1 becomes a rushing threat, we would make a call to let everybody know that the count is essentially being pulled back, and we need to now account for the star as part of the pass protection. So a pretty common creeper seen at most levels of football would be to come bring the star off the edge, spike this defensive end of the B gap, drop the other defensive end out to the flat, and play regular cover 3 behind it. Strong safety would roll over the top, and then this is just a typical cover 3 with a 4-man rush. So how this would fit up with a pass protection, remember we're sliding to the left, we are starting on the right, we've got jet protection here. The right tackle is expecting the defensive end. The right guard has the 3, so he is expecting him. The guard makes the call to tell the center that it is a 3-man slide. So when the nose tries to cross the center's face, the center has to go with him and pick him up. Now, if we see that star creeping down pre-snap, we would make that call. And so the left guard would know to not squeeze the nose. He would come back and play a little bit heavier in the B gap. He would pick up the defensive end. Left tackle would pick up the star. Another thing here that I want to note is that when we make that call to let the line know that, hey, the -1 is now a threat, it also tells the running back that he has to add the ID'd Mike before he can get out. So the running back would step up into his gap and make his read. He would look from +1 to +2, but before he can get out into his check down, he has to make sure that the Mike also is not a rushing threat. When he hears that call that we are now accounting for the -1, he has to know that, okay, I have to look from 1 to 2 to Mike before I can get out into that check down. So another common thing for defenses to try and do is to try and overload a side and run a 4-man pressure all on one side. That's how we would pick it up, is that whenever we go to account for that -1, we have the running back able to account for the Mike that the offensive line is abandoning. So the key here for the offensive line is that the offensive line is working outside in. So here we can see the offensive line, they're working to the widest rusher, which is the -1, which is the star right here. If he comes, that's the offensive line's job because they have the halfback working inside.
This video is sponsored by GameStrat. GameStrat is the most reliable sideline replay system on the market due to their wired connection from press box camera to router, which also speeds up loading times on the field. GameStrat's picture-in-picture feature allows for easy switching between angles. Each angle is synced up for seamless playback when switching. A side benefit of this feature is both angles loading simultaneously. Instead of watching one angle, navigating to the other and waiting for it to load, get GameStrat and enjoy seamless playback between multiple angles.
Now, Scat Protection is different. Scat Protection is a 5-man protection. So now the running back is going to get out into his route right away. So Scat Protection has the benefit of guaranteeing that the running back is going to get out. Sometimes running backs can get a little caught up in pass protection, right? Whether they get caught up in the wash of the pass protection or they just don't do a very good job of getting out into that check down. Sometimes that running back just gets stuck. Even when he's not blocking anybody, he's still stuck. So Scat Protection has the ability to force him out because he doesn't account for anybody in the pass protection as far as who he's actually blocking, so he can get out right away at the snap of the ball. Now, Scat Protection is really useful for making sure we get all 5 out like we talked about at the beginning of the video. Defenses are so used to covering 4, covering 5 is extremely hard. Even if it's just a running back on a little flare, almost always he is extremely wide open. Nobody within 10, 15 yards. It's so hard to defend that running back out of the backfield because a lot of defenses just aren't used to it. Now, the drawback of Scat Protection obviously is that the quarterback is more exposed. He only has the 5 offensive linemen blocking for him. That is it. But this is where the sorting aspect of Scat Protection really comes into play, because ideally the defense still has to send 5 players in order to affect the quarterback. Now, initially, Scat Protection isn't going to look much different than Jet Protection. The offensive line is still going to call things very similarly. We have different calls that we would use for Jet and Scat Protection, but the idea of I've got this guy, you've got that guy is the same pre-snap. The difference now is that whereas with Jet Protection, it took both the +1 and the +2 blitzing for the quarterback to throw hot, now it only takes 1. And on the backside, if both the Mike and the -1 blitz, then he has to throw. So with Jet Protection, we are guaranteeing the quarterback, your back is protected. You only have to worry if the +1 and the +2 come. With Scat Protection, he's got to worry a little bit about the backside if the -1 and the Mike come, but the biggest deal is if the +1 or the +2 comes. If we get any free rusher on the play side, we've got to make that hot throw. Now, the difference here with Scat is that with the offensive line in Jet, they were working outside in. With Scat, we want to work inside out. Because we have a larger possibility of a free rusher to the quarterback, we want to make sure that if he's going to run free, we have the rusher that has the largest path to the quarterback. Remember, the fastest point from point A to point B is a straight line. We want to make sure we can get as many guys in his way, or we can get the guy that has the farthest distance to travel between him and the quarterback. We want him to be the free rusher. Just every 1/10 of a second that the quarterback gets extra to throw is an easier way we can get that hot throw off. So pre-snap, it doesn't exactly matter where this concept is. With Scat Protection, the offensive line or the quarterback, based on kind of who's in charge of the protection that year, has the ability to flip it. So with Jet Protection, it's going to be married to the concept, so we want to get that split on the front side. With Scat Protection, we've got to make sure that the most dangerous rushers pre-snap are accounted for. So whether we are throwing the concept to the right or to the left here, the most dangerous pass rusher is the will. So we would want to slide that way, whether we are going to the right or to the left with the concept. So here the right tackle would have the will, the right guard would have the 4i. We would have ID'd the Mike as our Mike, and essentially we would have a 5-man slide with the left tackle needing to cut off the 4i. Now we've got our +1, our +2 into our Mike, and -1. So that's how we would ID things pre-snap. Now let's say maybe it's 3rd and long or something, and the defense is trying to get a little bit tricky. What a defense might do is bring these middle linebackers down, maybe stack them behind the defensive ends and try some twist things. Either way, we're going to present them as rushing threats now too. So now we have 5 rushing threats on the interior, and we have a rushing threat on the outside. So the offensive line in this scenario would be responsible for the 2 inside linebackers and the 3 down linemen. So again, we're blocking inside out for 2 reasons. We want to make that free rusher the one who is the farthest away from the quarterback, so he's got the longest time to travel to get there, but also because we don't have the running back inside to protect. So remember, with Jet Protection, we have the running back on the inside. He is inserting into the pass protection where it splits, so the offensive line can work outside knowing that they have that inside help. With Scat Protection, they don't, so they need to make sure that they take care of all the inside rushers, and if we get a wide edge rusher, the quarterback has to get rid of the ball quicker. And generally, this is where I like a rail route by the running back. If we get that quick edge pressure, then he should be open. That is our hot throw right there. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about creepers and sims and how we can really get those blocked up and some specific examples. So I'm not entirely sure. Let me know in the comments down below if you do know for sure. I'm pretty sure the difference in creepers and sims. creepers are when a non-traditional rusher is going to rush and we're going to drop a traditional rusher. So an example right here might be the star. He is in a DB position, he's apexed, he's outside. That's somebody that the offensive line may not be accounting for. And then they're gonna drop a traditional rusher, somebody that the offensive line is generally going to account for. So a defensive thought process here, if the defensive end slants there, the nose slants to the A gap, and the wheel comes off the backside, you still got essentially a 4-man rush with an overfront. The defensive end, how well are you going to teach them to drop? How often are you going to do that? I don't know. But you still got a 4-man rush and a 7-man coverage, so your coverage is more intact. You're trying to bring somebody that the offensive line's not accounting for and get a free rusher without sacrificing the integrity of the coverage, keeping a 7-man coverage. So sim pressures are similar, except it generally just has to deal with traditional rushers. So here we've got a penny front, and what 9 out of 10 offensive lines are going to do right here is they're going to call for Bob. They're going to 5-0 the protection, and we're just going to block big on big, and nobody's really going to have the mic, especially in a scat protection if the running back is getting out. So what a traditional sim pressure would look like, again, the idea is we don't want to sacrifice the integrity of the coverage, but we want to try and get a free rusher. So what a defense might do here is caught both defensive ends through the B gaps, slant the nose one way, and bring the mic the other way. If the 2 guards are fast fanning out to the defensive ends, they're not going to be able to get back to that mic in time, and he's going to come free while the defense still has 7 in coverage, and they're able to cover any hot routes. So between both sims and creepers, the goal is to keep a 4-man rush, keep the integrity of the coverage, cover any hot routes, but still get a free rusher while the offensive line is blocking air from where they expected guys to be.
This video is brought to you by the all-in-one player information spreadsheet. This spreadsheet will calculate max percentages and update your player prospect sheet automatically. If you are still calculating maxes by hand, then manually updating the prospect sheet for college recruiters, this resource is for you. Learn how to get back your time with this time-saving resource in the description below.
All right, so let's take a look at some full concepts. We're going to get a pass concept, we're going to get a pass protection against the defense here, and talk through the entire thing. We're going to start with Y cross. So we've got the X on the go, going to get the F on the out, the Y under the first, over the second, going to get the Z on the dig backside, and we're going to run this with jet protection. So the running back is going to check, and then we'd get out into what I call a check burst. So protection wise, again, we're in jet protection. The concept starts to the left. The way the Y cross is read is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We would ID the mic here, backside linebacker. Left tackle is going to have the defensive end and get a 4-man slide to the right. Because the -1 is not a rushing threat, we can play heavy on the ones in the box. So the left guard's going to take the nose, the center is going to squeeze him with eyes on the mic. Right guard's got the 3, right tackle has the backside defensive end. Running back is looking at +1, +2. As long as neither of them come, he's going to insert into the line and burst out away from the play to be that backside check down. If either the +1 or the +2 comes, he's going to block them. If they both come, let's say maybe the defense runs one of those fire zones. So they're playing cover 3, 3 under, 3 deep. From a 4-down structure, the defensive end would probably have to play the flat here. In this case, the Y cross is the hot read. He's the hot for the quarterback. Ideally, he can see the rush and maybe snap off his cross a little bit earlier to be friendlier to the quarterback. But either way, he's coming across the middle, going to have a lot of empty space over here from the void to the rush. Quarterback's got to be able to make that throw. Let's take a different look at Y cross now. We'll look at it with an arrow concept, or what most would call 3-man snag on the front side. So we're going to get a scat protection here because the running back is going to be running the flat. So remember, with scat protection now, it only takes 1 on the front side to need to throw hot. Doesn't matter if it's the jack or the star. If either one of them comes, we don't have the running back there accounting for him, so the quarterback would have to make a hot throw. All right, if you've been around the channel at all, you know that I love condensed formations. We're gonna take a look at mesh out of one here. So we're gonna go mesh rail, gonna get the running back on the rail, gonna get the Y setting the mesh for the X coming underneath so he can spring free, and we're gonna get the Z running the over the ball. And to lock it up, we're going to run Scat Protection, but we are also gonna get the fullback involved. Now this isn't what the Shanahan system calls check wide, but it's what I call check wide, and I really like it because it's a good way to make sure we can get that backside C gap protected in Scat Protection, even if the offensive line has to be worried about blocking in instead of out, working inside out versus outside in there in Scat Protection. We can still make sure that we give the quarterback just the extra security on the backside just in case that guy comes. So as far as our protection would go here, with the SAM being widened out by the Z and the Y, and the will being widened out by the X, I would probably prefer to make a double dual call. And what that is, it's a scat version of 5-0. So the center is going to have the nose wherever he goes. Then we're going to be trying to account for 3-4-2 with our 2 guard and tackle combos. So if all 3 of them in the duel come, then the outside rushers are going to be the ones coming free. But if only one of those linebackers comes and we assume the defensive end blitzes, then we're able to pick it up. So just for argument's sake, to show what a check wide would do, how it would work, let's say we're going to get the play side end cop into the B gap, the nose pushing to the play side A gap, the end, the jack, and the will all coming backside. So in this scenario, in Scat Protection, generally the will would be coming free. However, because we have the fullback on the check wide, he's going to be able to pick him up. So the check wide for me is we're looking just a quick, is that outside guy coming? Can I do anything about it? If he's not, then we're just gonna run in the flat and be the check down. But if he is coming, that's especially on the quarterback's backside. So now the quarterback still has his full progression. He's still able to have the time to make his throw. So check wide is we are checking for the widest rusher. Is he blitzing? Okay, then now I can pick him up. If he's not, then I can get out into the flat and be the outlet throw because he's going to be the 5th read in the progression. And this is a great way to kind of get a 5.5 man protection. I would kind of consider it because we really don't want that guy to have to block. But if he does, he's protecting the quarterback's backside here. I wouldn't run a check wide on the front side because we want him to be that outlet pass. We don't want the quarterback looking from left to right and have to go back to left to throw his check down. So we want that to be on the backside. A great add-in to a Scat Protection if you want just that extra bit of security to make sure the quarterback doesn't get hit in the back. So in the comments below, let me know which one you prefer. Do you prefer 5 or 6 man? Do you prefer Scat or Jet? Now at the high school level, I prefer Scat. I prefer Scat because defenses do not do a good job of covering 5 eligible receivers, and we also just don't see very many 5+ man pressures. It's odd enough for us to see a 5-man pressure. I've been the offensive line coach for 2 years, and I think I can count maybe 2 6-man pressures that I've seen in 2 years. So if they're not going to force us to keep the running back in, then we need to get him out to stress the coverage more. However, if I could only run 1 pass protection, it would be Jet, just for the security for the quarterback being protected C gap to C gap. If I only had the capacity to run 1, it would be Jet. It still works with most concepts. You can build an entire passing game around it, and you're going to make sure the quarterback is protected. So if I'm able to have both in, I'm probably going to be running more Scat just so we can stress the defense out that much more, but we need to be able to have Jet in the package in case they force us to keep the running back in. Now I do think that both of these protections are the future of offensive line play because being able to account for that -1, that defender that the defense doesn't want you accounting for, is going to help be the difference in being able to pick up sim and creeper pressures. And if you want to see the full video on Scat Protection, click on the screen and watch this next video.